You came on a very interesting time. Generally, the country is, I think, going through a lot. What's the perception from outside?
I'd say that Pakistan is one of the most exciting large countries in the region because there's tremendous enthusiasm.
You talked about your kids. So when you talk to them about that you are working in Meta, like how do they see it? And did you get a lot of requests of, I don't know, like verifications or monetizations?
And so actually they were more excited about coming into the office. One thing about tech companies is they're pretty generous in terms of the free food and drink.
How you guys are working with the creators, because the creator economy, as we discussed, is quite huge. There is a lot of growth which we have seen.
We really try to improve connectivity so that creators here in Pakistan can reach not only people here, but reach people around the world. So I'm happy to let you know that we are connecting a cable early next year to Karachi, which is 45,000 kilometers long, which will connect Pakistan with 33 other countries.
What's stopping Meta to bring monetization to Pakistan? How much time do you spend on Meta?
Wow. It's an interesting one because I'm using products kind of all day, every day in many ways. The WhatsApp is by far the product I use more than anything else.
What does public policy have to do with a platform where we just go and spend time and watch videos?
Wow, that is a big question.
Talk to me a little bit about working with Meta.
I did have somebody who said to me, how is a guy as old as you going to cope with a company as young as this? That's just not the case anymore. From my personal perspective, it's been an incredible company to join.
I think one of the questions, especially from the creator economy, if they're watching, how to go viral on social media.
That's maybe the $64 million question, really, as to what is the kind of content. Look.
Hi everyone, welcome to a very special episode. आज हमारे साथ साइमन मिलनर मौजूद हैं मेटा से, जो कि वाइस प्रेसिडेंट हैं और पब्लिक पॉलिसी को देखते हैं एपैक रीजन में। आज हम इनके साथ बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग गुफ्तगू करने जा रहे हैं। एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल, मेटा पाकिस्तान में क्या कुछ कर रहा है, कौन से प्रोजेक्ट्स चल रहे हैं, गवर्नमेंट के साथ मेटा की क्या कोलैबोरेशन है और मेटा के कौन से इंटरेस्टिंग नए फीचर्स और प्रोडक्ट जो हैं वो मार्केट में आ रहे हैं। साइमन, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर टेकिंग द टाइम आउट. Talk to me a little bit about your experience in Pakistan right now. This is your first trip, I believe?
No, it's not actually. It's my second trip. But since the first one was before the pandemic, it feels like the first time because that passage of time over COVID was so dramatic. And so it's great to be back here in Islamabad. I love coming here. I think the people are incredibly welcoming. It's a fascinating country. I'm only seeing a small glimpse of it, but I really have enjoyed my time here this week.
You also came on a very interesting, I think, time when there's a lot of like political stuff happening and generally the country is, I think, going through a lot. What's the perception from outside when you look at Pakistan?
So when I think about it, I'm responsible for the whole Asia-Pacific region. So there's enormous amounts of diversity, some very large countries like Pakistan with places like Indonesia and Bangladesh I'm also responsible for. And then obviously some very small countries, huge levels of diversity in terms of how much tech policy activity there is and diversity in terms of the digital economies. I'd say that Pakistan is one of the most exciting large countries in the region because there's tremendous enthusiasm for our products here from people, from small businesses, from communities, also from developers, really strong developer community. On the policy side, which I'm responsible for, frankly, there's a bit of a mixed picture. There are some aspects of our dialogue, including the conversations I've had this week, which is very encouraging. This is a government that wants a healthy digital economy, but also there are areas of policy which are concerning. So moves that, frankly, I think would potentially put Pakistan back on that road to a really strong, healthy, vibrant digital economy, which is open to the world. So it's a bit of a mixed picture, I'd say, and that's not uncommon. There are other countries in the region that are like that, and our role really is to try and work with everybody involved, and obviously from my responsibility, especially government, to help ensure they make well-informed decisions which we think will enable Pakistan to continue to grow and to thrive.
Before we go into more of your work with the government or like generally Talk to me a little bit about your own background, because working with Meta, it's like a very, like a youth sort of focused organization. What was your sort of personal journey for the last, like, like 3 decades?
Okay, so I have a bit of a funny story about this. When I was applying to join the company and being interviewed, this is way back in 2011, so 13 years ago, probably around this time.
In Meta, you mean?
To join the company, okay. Being interviewed, I did have somebody who said to me then, how is a guy as old as you going to cope with a company as young as this? Now, that was kind of a little bit in jest, but it was a sense of this is a very young company, and the sense of everybody who worked here was young, and it was principally aimed at young people. That's just not the case anymore. This is a company that's just creating products for everybody. And yes, young people are important, and clearly they are the future, literally. But everybody matters when it comes to our services. And when you're a company with 3.2 billion people around the world using your products, that's every age from 13 upwards are using our products. So we're here for everyone. From my personal perspective, it's been an incredible company to join. I previously worked at the BBC, and I thought when I left the BBC, I will never work for a more important company in my life. Now I've worked here for almost 13 years. That's not true. I do think that Facebook Meta has more impact on more people's lives in more countries around the world than any media organization has ever done and will ever do, because of what we enable people to do for themselves and in their communities, and the way that we enable people to connect.
And what did you study in your bachelor's and master's?
Oh, well, so that's a real throwback. So I did history and economics at Oxford. Then I actually studied industrial relations at the London School of Economics. And I did a PhD in that topic and was all set to be an academic. But actually I found, as much as I enjoyed research, I really wanted to get involved in the world of policy because I felt that was more impactful for people's lives, and I was just intrigued by it. And I've now worked for 3 big organizations, the BBC, BT, which is a big British telecoms company, in fact, literally called British Telecom, and now Facebook Meta. And honestly, I've never once felt to myself, I'd like to go back and be an academic. I love what I do. I love being able to represent this company, to engage with people in hugely diverse settings, including here in Pakistan, and to talk about the things that they care about when it comes to technology, when it comes to our products, and the policy issues that create.
And when you were growing up at that time, because the landscape was very different, at least in Pakistan right now, it's either it's engineering or you need to go into the medical, most of it. When you were growing up, what was the atmosphere around you, and that then led to the policy sort of world?
Well, remember, I'm old, right? And so when I was growing up, most people didn't go to university. It was pretty uncommon. So I've got 2 sisters. Neither of them went to university. I was the first person to do that in my family. Thankfully, now I've got 3 grown-up children, all in their 20s. They all went to university, and that's quite common. And they've all done quite different things from me. And I think that the world of policy is one in which, rather like the world of politics, you actually really want to have people with a range of experiences. In general, I don't encourage. I've got one son who's finishing university soon, who's studying politics. I'm not encouraging him to go into politics. I think actually the policy and political world benefits from people who've had different experiences as lawyers, as doctors, as journalists, who've worked in industry, who've done all kinds of different things, or maybe haven't actually done a profession, are coming from a background as somebody who's been a homemaker. I think that's good for running countries well and for making decisions, because these are people who understand what's going on in real people's lives. And I think that's also good for companies like ours to have a diversity of people who do all kinds of different jobs in our company, including in the policy.
And when you talk to you talked about your kids. So when you talk to them about that you are working in Meta, like how do they see it? And did you get a lot of requests of, I don't know, like verifications or monetizations or things like that?
Well, look, my kids were young when I started. Only one of them had a Facebook account when I first started in the company. And so actually they were more excited about coming into the office. One thing about tech companies is they're pretty generous in terms of the free food and drink that we provide for employees, and we encourage people to come in and explore our spaces, to bring their families in. So I did have one time with my son, who was probably 8 at the time, coming in, and we had to frisk him on the way out because he'd put so many sweets or candy all over his body. We had to frisk him and kind of say, look, you can't take that much home with you. So he's now 22, and in fact, he and some friends are driving across from London to Mongolia. So I was messaging with him a couple of days ago. He's in Armenia at the moment. So he and I are actually much closer together than we normally are, between Singapore and Edinburgh, where he's studying. He's now in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. I'm in Islamabad. I mean, it's pretty hard to get between the two places, but we're closer than we usually are together. So, but just going back to your question, they were pretty excited about Dad joining a tech company, an American tech company, having worked for 2 big British brands before. They were intrigued as to what it was all about. They were very excited when I was able to take them to our headquarters in Menlo Park and to explore that. So yeah, they're pretty. I think they're still pretty proud of Dad for having come and doing this. And now, in particular, they love the fact that I moved halfway around the world. I get to come to places like Pakistan, to Islamabad, and do calls with them, share with them how people are using our products, and also what goes on here, what's life like in Islamabad, and just to get them excited, I think, about traveling the world and exploring.
Talk to me a little bit about like Meta overall, because if you're a normal person, you think about it's a platform where you go upload pictures and things like that. And in your whole conversation, you talked about products, you talk about public policy even. So if like an average human is watching this, they'll be like, what is like public policy have to do with a platform where we just go and spend time and watch videos? And the whole evolution of Facebook, starting with the university for university students, and then from there, like mainly for the friends and family, and then focusing on news, and then no focus on news, and then AI, and then things like that. So how's the journey of like Meta overall?
Wow, that is a big question. I love that kind of question of how do you explain why Meta even needs a policy team, let alone what do we actually do? I'd say it's because there are a number of kind of aspects to it, and initially it started really with politicians wanting to understand, what is this product that millions of people are using in my country, and should I be using it? So quite a lot of the early conversations when we first started building a policy team, which was probably around 2008, so a long time ago, was to just help people understand it. And indeed, that's still part of our job as a policy team, is when policymakers, whether it's in government or regulators, want to understand our company, it's our job to do that. It's help explain it. It's almost like we're the ambassadors. So just as Pakistan has ambassadors and diplomats around the world to help foreign governments understand Pakistan, understand not just its people, its policies, its industries, all those things. That's what we do, right?
That's the easiest definition I've ever got. That's really.
But then the other side of it is a recognition that people may be worried about our power, because there's never been anything like this as a place where people can express themselves. And that's everything from a journalist like yourself, a policymaker that's used to having airtime, if you like, and explaining themselves, a business leader perhaps. But now everybody has airtime. Anybody can go online and share their perspectives on what's going on around them, in their community, in the country, internationally, on an issue that they really care about, like, say, climate change, which is obviously hugely important here in Pakistan. And that can get around the world very easily for free. And so that power, the power of the medium, is something that always interests policymakers, just in the same way as policymakers are very interested in the media. Right, you're a journalist, you know this. When you go and interview politicians, I'm sure they know that you are able to reach people through your podcast and through your media that they can't directly. And so there's that sense of power. And then I just want to be honest, there's also a sense of, well, look, when you have 3.2 billion people using products, not all of those people want to use it for good. The vast majority do, the vast majority. But there are some people who want to propagate harm, either through incitement, for instance, or through crime. They're actually trying to engage with someone in order to defraud them. And so governments are rightly concerned about, well, what are you doing, Meta, to keep people safe, to manage those issues? How do you work with law enforcement, for instance, if there is criminal activity? So there's all kinds of different things that have developed over the years in terms of the work that we do. I'd say in this region, the great majority of it is about harnessing that excitement about what these products and services can do for people, for whether it's a female entrepreneur during COVID. We had a massive rise in female entrepreneurship from people's homes during COVID because people could not go out to work, but creating businesses at home, using Facebook to reach consumers, to people in education who want to think, how could I use this? So a lot of our work is what we call programs, where we partner with different organizations to enable people to make the most of these products and services, and including here in Pakistan.
And also, like, how do you guys, obviously I'm sure there is a team who looks into insights or into a long-term strategy. Okay, we need to focus on this, like the climate change, or as an example, the reels are now trending, or like shorts and things like that. But there is a criticism which we sometimes hear that, as an example, if I am a news organization and I started my business mainly on Facebook, which is actually true, like TCM started from a very small page on Facebook. So how do you sort of define what's needed and what's coming?
Well, frankly, like every company which is reliant on people getting value from products, it's to do with consumer preferences. So yes, there was a period when we felt that by partnering with news organizations, including in some cases actually funding the production of extra additional content, that people would really value that. As part of their Facebook experience in particular, particularly on Facebook, is less so with Instagram. Frankly, we found that we weren't right. People did not value it. People generally, such a very small proportion of people's content in newsfeed. I know it's called newsfeed, which might imply news, but actually that's just a term of art. It's a feed. A very small percentage, less than 5% of content in newsfeed was news. We're focusing on other things and a whole realm of other kinds of creators.
So before we go into the creator economy, because
Sure.
I feel like people would be, I think, more interested in that. But talk to me a little bit about your presence in Pakistan. Like for how I know, like you don't still have a proper office, which a lot of my colleagues complain a lot. Facebook should have office. There is no one to contact. But obviously you have a team in Singapore where people go and talk to them. But as in whole, what are some of the projects or like some of the partners as well in Pakistan which you guys have?
Well, so we have about 60 million people using Facebook here, and that's obviously a pretty high proportion of the people who are online. You're right, we don't have an office, but that's true of many other countries in this region and around the world where we have similar or probably more users, and that's because this is an online service. And in the same way that it's just as easy if you upload something here, any of your friends, wherever they are in the world, will see it at exactly the same time. In the same way, our team, we do have a dedicated team for Pakistan. They are based in Singapore, along with our dedicated teams for many other countries. They are in regular contact with the government and with partners here. And it makes no difference about the fact if they were based here. In fact, in some ways, it's much easier for them to do it from Singapore, given they're then close by all the other colleagues that they need to work with. But going on to partnerships, look, just this week we've the first event I was involved in pretty soon after arriving in the country was a really brilliant event all around the use of AI, where just a few weeks ago we kicked off this competition to ask for developers who were creating products for Pakistan using Llama, which is our open source AI model, and we invited people to pitch their idea. Either they're already using Llama or they plan to use Llama. We had 112 applicants. We partnered with NICAT and with Ignite and with the Ministry of IT in this competition. So they helped us find those people and encourage people to apply. And then we had 3 finalists who pitched this week. The winner will go to Singapore in a few weeks alongside kind of the winners of similar competitions in 12 other Asian countries, and stand to win a grant of $100,000. Now that couldn't happen without partnership. We couldn't have done it on our own, but those partnerships, some of them are new, some are long term, but it enables us to be able to reach more people with our programs in Pakistan, and that's typical of what we do elsewhere in the world. But Pakistan was the first country we did this, and a lot of that is to do with there's so much excitement.
And why Pakistan?
Developers. Because of that, because there's so much excitement here. We also launched Meta AI, which is our own service built on Llama, which is integrated into Instagram and WhatsApp and Messenger and Facebook. This is one of the few countries in Asia where we've launched it, and it's really popular. So we're really happy with that. So it's really because we saw good partners, real excitement, a strong developer community, that we were able to make it happen here first. So really strong start for this. It's called the APAC AI Accelerator. I'm delighted with it in terms of just how many applicants we had and how strong the winner is. Do you want me to tell you about the winner?
Yeah, I would love to know.
So the winner is from a developer called, I'm going to hope I get this right, Transverse AI. But I can tell you about the product. The product is Urdu Llama. So what they've done is taken Llama, they've added their own Urdu content to it, and they've created a product that can enable people who are not literate to be able to speak into a device and create high quality, written Urdu, and to be able to send that as a text, but also to integrate, to ask questions of the Urdu Llama in their own language and to get answers back in their own language.
Wow.
So they're creating something which is going to be incredibly useful for tens of millions of Urdu speakers here in Pakistan.
Also, talk to me a little bit about, if you talk about the partnerships, I'm sure you're working with the government, and on a political, let's say, scale, the fake news especially, there are a lot of blasphemy cases. There's a lot of other similar stuff which is happening. And Facebook is sort of a place where we see a lot of these things, and you have a lot of programs to counter it. But with the Pakistani government, or generally in Pakistan, how are you thinking to sort of prevent that? And what are some of the work you guys are doing here?
So there's a couple of different things. One is we have some long-standing education initiatives, one called We Think Digital, which has now this year reached 45 million Pakistanis with information about kind of appropriate behavior online, and also what to do if they come across something which shouldn't be there, and how to report it and how to get that actioned. And we've got more to come on that front, more safety initiatives, and particularly some focused on young people and educating them about how to keep safe. Look, we also have, and this is public knowledge, just like in other countries which have particular rules around speech, we have a relationship with the authorities where they can alert us to content which they believe is locally legal, and then we can review and act on that. And we report on that publicly in our transparency report, which comes out a couple of times a year. So that's something we take seriously. We don't always agree But in general, I'd say we've established good working relationships with the government. Indeed, that was part of my meetings this week with ministers, was just to talk about that and in the context of some of the regulatory proposals that are under consideration in the different ministries.
And you talk about working with the government. When you talk to them, what are they personally most interested in working with Meta? Because again, in context to, there's a problem in terms of the internet, generally the problem with the economy, generally there are a lot of like issues which, like Pakistan is facing right now. Political instability, economy is the biggest one. And such a big platform coming to them, like, are they interested in talking to you, or is it just like, okay, the company is coming, we just need to meet? Or do you feel like they're actually like into this or like fixing these things?
I'd say all the meetings we've had have been very engaged. This is not something where, this is not a nice to do or some senior persons from Meta is coming, we better meet him, give him a cup of tea, whatever. No, these are important meetings. They're serious. I'd say they're generally genial. This is not a case of, well, we want to sit you down and give you a telling off. It's not like that. It's very much a, look, here are the issues we're concerned about. We're interested in security. We're interested in safety, so real world harm, particularly around, for instance, young people. We're worried about fraud and scams. I'd say these are the issues that every government's interested in. It's a principal thing that people look to government for, is to keep them safe, to protect them from criminals. And so that it's understandable that those are issues that the Pakistani government's concerned about, and so are we. Then they're also interested in the development of the digital economy. So when I met with Minister Shaza from the Ministry of IT this week, in fact, she was at this event that we did earlier in the week. She was very excited about AI and the possibilities of how AI can be used actually to create new kinds of jobs, to enable to unlock some inefficiencies in the economy and in some of the kind of bureaucracy, if you like, of government. One of the other finalists in our competition is creating a product which will use AI to try to massively reduce the backlog of cases in the Pakistan court system. Now, very, very practical. When we were at the Ministry of Law, they were very interested in this. We're making introductions on that front. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're just getting started. So she was very interested in that, as were the other people from NICAT and Ignite as well, about the sheer possibilities here. And these are benefits that not only can benefit Pakistan, but some of those developers are also getting interest from countries elsewhere in this region and beyond for these exciting products. So I'd say there's both, if you like, some hard topics like security and safety, and then there's also what you might think of as warmer topics around the digital economy, around jobs, around youth and creators.
One other thing, personally, I think, which I have seen, especially in the youngsters, I would say like the evolution of the young people, which includes hatred, which includes so much like toxic sort of, style of even talking to people. And one thing I feel like which I've noticed after the rise of digital, whether it's a TikTok or a YouTube or a Facebook or Instagram, before that, if you have any sort of thing, you go to someone and talk about it, and you're very like sort of calm about it. And after these like platforms, one thing which you have seen, like people are very aggressive. There is a lot of like hate. There's a lot of like, again, a blasphemy cases, like a fake news and things like that. Where do you see the role of the platforms? That's number one. And the second is the digital literacy is sort of also connected with that. And how to tackle that, because the more the platforms, like the more they grow, the more this problem will, I think, arise. And also the governments don't know how to tackle them.
Yeah, I think this is a really important issue for all of us, both whether we've got, as it were, kids like I have. I've also got a couple of teenage stepchildren who are just getting into the world of social media. So it's something that I know a lot of parents are worried about, but actually all of us should be concerned about this. And I'm not sure I completely agree with you that it's definitely going to get worse. What we see, actually, let's just step back a bit. So I think on the one hand, there is education. And clearly one of the things that we need to do is make sure we have the best kind of education material that is both disseminated through our services and that we use other platforms to do that, including broadcast and partnering with government and partnering with other organizations to try and reach young people. And we've got a number of programs that we do around the world, and then some specific ones for particular countries like Pakistan. The second thing is research. It's really important to actually understand what's really going on, and not just to base it either on your own experience or maybe your perceptions of what's going on for younger people. So this general notion of that if a young person is feeling depressed or down, that social media is going to make it worse. Actually, there's lots of evidence to suggest otherwise. That actually, especially for instance, if you're someone who is struggling with what feels like just something that only matters to you, and there's nobody else in your family or among your school friends who's got the same problem. Maybe you've got a particular kind of disability, or you look a bit different from other people. Actually, when you go online, you can find people just like you, who can also share about how they handle that situation. Maybe you're overweight as a child, as a young person. You can find a community of people who are, maybe also be overweight, and talk about how they handle those kind of situations of teasing or bullying. So so actually doing the research is really important to understand it. And then, and this is something that's absolutely our responsibility, is thinking about what can we do in terms of how the product works to try and address the issues that are maybe not helped by the way people use our service. So one of the things we can do is say, let's for teenagers have screen time, and say, we're going to make it easy or we're going to have reminders, for instance, that says, hey, you've been on Instagram for 45 minutes or maybe 2 hours during the course of this day. It's time for a break. We can also help parents with explaining to them how products like ours work. We can help people in being able to, kind of manage the comments that they might get on their posts, to block certain words, not just to block people, but block certain words that they might find, painful for them. So there is a range of things that we can and do. You're never going to fix it, forever. You can't kind of flick a switch to make this just change, and that's like all complex features of humanity, really. It takes multiple efforts and it takes partnerships. But we believe, and I think it's also wrong to think all services are the same. There are clearly some products that have not invested as much in this area, that are interested in just keeping people addicted. That's not what we're about as a company. That's not good for us. It doesn't fit with our values. We know that's not what parents want. It's not what young people want. And it's not what policymakers want. So we do the research. We have partners who actually work with young people, often are young people, to help us understand what works. And then we also talk to parents, and we are constantly trying to improve. So frankly, we've got a whole range of things that we do now, but expect that to continue to develop in the years to come. Because I'd love for you to feel, rather than to, especially we can help you with this, to feel, actually, I think I'm wrong. I don't think it's right to say this is inevitably bad or inevitably going to get worse. I just don't think.
I mean, I personally feel like the polarization in the society, at least in Pakistan, has increased a lot.
Right.
And I feel like the presence of the rise of digital, I think helped that. And because there is no as such law, like I know there is FIE and things like that, but the process are not like, as such there. So generally, in Pakistani society, it's just like, because of the political activism, because of the religious activism, whether it's, again, the blasphemy cases. There are a lot of cases which we have seen just happened on digital. Like, I have sent you something, you have sent me something back in my inbox account, and you take that to somewhere and showed people the images and things like that. So generally, I don't know. I also don't know what's the solution. I feel like the only solution is the digital literacy, because to the young people, especially the Gen Z or the new generation, which is like, coming for the next 10, 20, 30 years, you need to teach them how to use these tools better and just sort of teach them because these platforms cannot go anywhere. Like, obviously, they will grow more and more. So in Pakistani context, I think that's true.
Well, look, you know Pakistan much better than me, so I don't want to gainsay that. But I think also, look, it's a shared responsibility. So we want to tap into your understanding in terms of what are you seeing, and are there some things that we could be doing better? Do we need to tweak that? Do we need to change some of that education to adapt, to be responsive to new developments in society? I mean, one thing we do, for instance, when there is, one thing we're particularly focused on is where online kind of what you might sometimes call hot speech. So when people are getting very agitated about something, that could be associated with real world harm. So violence in the real world, and that's when our partnerships with the authorities can be really important. So we have the kind of relationship where they can say, "Hey, look, this is a particular flashpoint, this particular religious holiday or religious event which could lead to communal violence. Can you just be really ready for if we alert you to content that might be inflaming the situation?" So we'll say absolutely. We have a dedicated team. We'll say we'll make sure that they're on standby for that, and then we can work really quickly to deal with that kind of content. Often we will find it ourselves. So once we'll particularly say if there is some content that might go viral, we can deal with that at scale. So there are things that we can do, but I think in general this is a whole of society issue, the issue of polarization is obviously a hugely significant one politically. I think the evidence, I want to say, is really quite mixed. We see some societies where they've got incredible penetration of the internet and social media, which are less polarized than they've ever been, and some which are more polarized. So it's not obvious that there's a causation. What is clearly the case is if you've got a highly polarized society, that is going to be represented online. And I think there's therefore a kind of a partnership needed to see what we can do to try to alleviate the worst kind of consequences of a highly polarized society. But also polarization could be something which is about, hey, we're having a really fierce public debate about what's the right way forward for our country. And that should be something that people have. It's an incredibly important part of democracy. And so we want to ensure that we enable that. And we don't stifle what is important in a public debate. That's an incredibly important part of the role that we play, is enabling that, I think.
How much time do you spend on Meta?
Wow. It's an interesting one because I'm using products kind of all day, every day in many ways. Look, WhatsApp is by far the most the product I use more than anything else to communicate with my wife, my family back in the UK, my colleagues, my old school friends. Like hopefully it's the same for you as well. You've got some key groups that when you wake up, especially if you've got friends or family overseas, you wake up in the morning, they're the first thing you go to, find out what's going on. As it happens, my mum, she's fine, but she's been in hospital for a few days, so I'm regularly checking in with my sisters and her as to how she's doing. And funny story, so my mum, I said I was from Bradford in Yorkshire, which has strong connections to Pakistan. She's in a small ward in hospital. One of the other women in the ward with her family are from Islamabad. So that's just an amazing kind of coincidence that I happened to be here and shared with my mum that I'm here. I sent her a live location. And then she said, oh, one of the ladies in the ward is, she's got family from Islamabad. So I just love WhatsApp for that private, small group, one-to-one communication. But, now I'm loving Threads. I don't know if you're checking Threads out. I think it's a wonderful space. And I'm particularly enjoying, it seems almost every day, there's more journalists who are joining Threads, and there's a real community of journalists on there, which I'm not part of that community, but, I'm fascinated by journalism, around the world. So I'm loving Threads.
And how do you see the role of AI now? Because AI is also, at least in Pakistan, especially for the last 2-3 years, sort of a very buzzword. As entrepreneurship or a startup was like a thing in Pakistan. Still now, obviously, we have seen the space, but the last 2-3 years, I feel like, again, because of the different factors, economy and politics. But generally, how do you see, one, the whole evolution of AI, and then connecting that with all of these social platforms and the impact they can create in a long term?
That is a massive topic, so let me try and do it some justice. So, look, we think AI has the potential to transform many of the ways in which we operate from a society perspective and how we interact. And that includes our products. So the key thing with AI for us is we don't see it as something that's separate, right, to all the other products that we have as a company. We see it as completely integrated and something which will be transformative for them over an extended period of time. And in some ways, for us, this is actually just a progression. So it's not like we just started doing AI last year. A lot of the work we do in the background that you don't see, including how newsfeed works, that is AI driven. That's not somebody saying, I think what Talha would like to see now is this, and then I think you should see that. That's AI that drives that. AI is incredibly important for how our advertising works, but for large and small businesses all over the world. And also we use AI to keep people safe. So we use AI to find bad content. Like, say, pornography, which we don't allow, that is taken down at an enormous scale by AI, generally before anybody sees it. So we've been using AI for a long time, but not in the foreground, if you like. It's not been something that you see when you're using our products. And now it is. So we've integrated Meta AI, and Pakistan is one of the first countries where people are seeing it. We're integrating it into the product, and we're seeing it as a way for people to create content, using the Imagine feature, for people to maybe improve some of their language. And that's both for people, whether it's you doing it in your primary language or a secondary language, to say, I just don't think I've written that quite right. I can use AI to improve it, to get good information. So, for instance, before I came here, I did think to myself, imagine if I had a few extra days, where would I go? And I used Meta AI for that. I just asked it the question. So instead of doing what we might normally do, which is to go and use a search engine, where you'd get so many results and you think, I just don't know which one of those to actually explore, just use Meta AI, and it gave me some great tips. It made me feel like, oh, I definitely should have stayed on longer. There's some great places to go to. And my team here say, Simon, next time you come, you at least have to go to Lahore, and you need to go up north. You need to come for 2 weeks. So I could use Meta AI for that. So there's a whole range of uses, and there's going to be so much more to come. Also, internally, we use it within the company. So, for instance, one of the things we have to do as a policy team is write submissions to governments. When governments put out proposals for instance, new privacy laws as being considered here in Pakistan, they will hopefully put out a draft and enable us to comment on it. When we do, we use AI tools to actually almost like produce a first draft, or when we've written a long draft and say, well, we need something much shorter, we can use AI to do that. So there are all kinds of tools that are available. And then what I think is much, much more exciting is what other people can do with our product. So we have these llama models. They are what's called open source. So anybody can access them, can download them, can use them to build their own AI-based products. And I was talking to you about this competition earlier. One of the other finalists was creating an AI that could help people who are taking this English proficiency test. I can't remember the name of the acronym, but it's when if you want to get a scholarship to go, and particularly say if you want to go and study elsewhere, you need to demonstrate your proficiency in English. It can be very expensive to get tutors to help you do this. They're using AI to create an online free service to enable people to test their English, whether that's spoken English, written English, set them tests, etc., mark it for them and give them tips to get up that level that you need to get up on your proficiency. So a great example of using a product that we've created, which is genuinely designed to create an ecosystem of AI-based products which are good for people and which people can use to improve their lives for fun, or to just make kind of ordinary everyday things more efficient.
So I've talked to one of my friend that I will be sitting with you, and he's a content creator. And he said, I have only one question. Okay. When is monetization is coming to Pakistan? I'm sure you've heard that a lot.
I have.
Like, what's stopping Meta to bring monetization to Pakistan? Because the creator economy is like huge in Pakistan. So what's like, is there any plan?
I can say there is, but I just want to be clear. This is not something where, as it were, we're just saying, oh, can't be bothered. Oh, it's only Pakistan, who cares? No, there's a real recognition that this is something which is, we get asked about a lot. I'm glad you've asked me. There are some legal issues associated with it, which have been hard to figure out. But how do we actually do it here, given the way that the banking and legal system works? We are making progress, and we are hopeful that we will be able to get there soon. So we will be able to launch monetization soon.
So it's a work in progress.
Yes, but it's a work in progress which is hopefully going to lead to a positive conclusion pretty soon.
Also, can you talk to me a little bit about how you guys are working with the creators? Because the creator economy, as we discussed, is quite huge and massively, there is a lot of growth which we have seen. So is there like a particular program from Meta to work with the creators in Pakistan?
So we do have partnership teams that try and take opportunities to engage with creator communities, often with partners in the region. So I know that they have produced a podcast, which is particularly targeted at Pakistani creators, and we can share those details with you so you can share it with your audience. I'd say that one of the other things we do is we really try to improve connectivity so that creators here in Pakistan can reach not only people here, but reach people around the world. So I'm happy to let you know that we are connecting a cable early next year to Karachi, which is 45,000 kilometers long, called To Africa, which will connect Pakistan with 33 other countries and will improve connectivity here.
Is it the internet or?
It's our services.
Okay.
But this is similar. A lot of the connectivity around the world of subsea cables is paid for by companies like us, and to ensure that our products work really well for the billions of people using our services. So that will help everybody in Pakistan, providing that the services are able to run freely here, and that will include creators. So there are investments we are making in the connectivity infrastructure that supports services like Instagram and Facebook, and Threads and Meta AI and Llama. All of these will get better once that cable lands, and will improve the ecosystem, if you like, for Pakistani creators to really ensure they distribute their content around the world.
Can you tell a little bit more about this? So,
Sure.
So there is this cable which is going to connect from Pakistan to Africa.
To 33 other countries
Okay.
in Africa and the Middle East. And so this is a cable that goes all the way around Africa and then connects back to the US. But it's one of the landing points is in Karachi, and that's going to be in 2025.
And how would that affect the user?
Well, what it does is improve the the bandwidth, if you like, improves issues like latency, improves connectivity. Now, we also rely on other people's networks within Pakistan, and we want to ensure that those are able to operate freely without interruption. That also matters. But this will be hugely beneficial for people here, but also enormous numbers of people in Africa as well, and just connectivity in this region will be massively improved because of that investment.
And how do you see the whole creator economy? Because before, like if you go back, let's say 5 to 10 years, the brands were more into the scene, like publications like BuzzFeed and Vice. As an example, like we are TCM, so we were like, the publications were like more in front of that. But now we have seen the creators are sort of crossing that sort of race, if you could say. How is the whole landscape changing?
Well, it's changing in so many ways. One of them is in terms of the formats that work best for creators and brands, actually. We've seen enormous success of Reels, a huge growth in the use of Reels, of that short form video content, and the people who can create that sort of content. And I imagine you enjoy that kind of content. I certainly do. And our ability to connect creators with people who enjoy their content, and eventually monetization here. I think that's the sweet spot for creators, and knowing that they can just reach so many people around the world who love that kind of their kind of content. So we offer just an incredible platform to do that. But short form content, Reels, is really where it's at.
I think one of the question people, or like especially from the creator economy, if they're watching, one question they would have is how to go viral on social media, and especially on Meta.
Well, I think that's maybe the $64 million question, really, as to what is the kind of content. Look, you need to understand your audience, and we provide all kinds of metrics to enable you to do that, to know what works, and we use AI to do that. I think who knows what's going to be the next big thing that people will enjoy watching. I mean, I've got this particular thing with this guy Adam Rose and his construction-based Reels. I don't know if you've seen these. I love those, and therefore I get lots of them. But I'm also quite into my sport, and therefore I will often get Reels associated with sport. But there's all kinds of different kinds of creators. I'm a dog owner, so some of the creators who are creating content with golden doodles. We happen to have a golden doodle at home. Love that. Then anything involving Taylor Swift, but there's only one Taylor Swift in the world.
Simon, thank you so much for taking the time out, and thank you for all the work you guys are doing in Pakistan. I think it's a very important work for overall for Pakistan, especially for the young people, I think. So thank you for that.
Thanks very much, Talha. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you very much.